Hey everybody, welcome to the Linux Cast. I'm your host, Matt.
I'm Drew.
And I'm Tyler.
Yes, indeed, you guys are. Welcome to the Linux Cast. We're back. This is like 2 weeks in a row. Something's obviously got to go wrong. We can't do 2 weeks in a row. That's impossible. This year has not been good for streaks. I'm just saying that right now. We'll do like 2 in a row, and then we'll be off for like a month. It's not great. Last year we did 37 episodes. My goal this year was to beat it by at least one. I don't think we're gonna make it. We're at 16. We're halfway through, so we got some work to do, boys. The cows ate my Starling dish. Sorry. If you guys want to know what I'm talking about, you'll have to join us live. We record this live every Tuesday now at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. So if you want to join us live and be a member of the chat where we have a bunch of fun, youtube.com/linuxcast is where we do that. I do have some other announcements that I need to make before we jump into our week in FOSS. So first, upcoming this Thursday at 8 o'clock, 8:15 p.m. Eastern Time is the second of the monthly lugs. So if you want to join the Linux user group, you'll have to join the Discord, which is linked in the video description and the podcast description below. So check that out. This time we're going to be talking about Linux Mint and its viability as the best distro for new users. So that should be an entertaining time for everybody involved. I'm hoping we have a little bit of a broader, audience than it was last time, but we'll see how it goes. Otherwise, we'll just have fun with whoever shows up. It's gonna be great. Anyways, so we do a Linux user group twice a month. The second Thursday in the month at 11:15 in the morning Eastern Time. And then the fourth Thursday of the month at 8:15 p.m. in the evening. That way we can kind of catch everybody for at least one of them. So if you want to join in on the lugs, but you can't make the next one, we do it twice a month. So join the Discord server. That's where all that stuff is announced and kind of organized. We use Jitsi to actually, talk to each other, but we organize it on Discord. So join the Discord server if you're interested in that. And the second thing, if you're listening to the audio version of this and you haven't already, head on over to the audio or the Apple Podcasts or whatever and leave us a review. It really helps us out. We appreciate all those of you who have gone through and done that already. I really do appreciate it. We went from 10 reviews to 24, which is, I think, pretty good. And that's good enough for me. But I hope if you haven't already, you'll go do that because that'd be awesome. So this is Linux Cast. We talk about Linuxy things, and we have some good topics for you tonight. I know that it's not appealing to everyone, but I like it, so I don't care. Anyways, but before we jump into the main topic, though, we go around the horn and talk about what we've done this week in open source and Linux and whatever. So, Tyler, you first. What have you done this week?
I've had kind of a weird week in Linux. I've helped some other people, not super well, but I've been helping out some different people with Nix problems and questions. But I've pretty much just been playing DayZ. I've had a bad DayZ addiction. I've built a base. I've probably put 80 hours the past week into DayZ. It's been phenomenal. It's been great. I love it. But productivity has went into the absolute crapper. I've also had bad brain fog this week, so I haven't really, anytime I've been trying to do something, I can't keep a clear train of thought. So it's been nice to distract myself and kind of cope with games, but that's pretty much all I've been doing. So if you want to play DayZ with me, I'll be playing.
I'll admit I don't know what DayZ is. Is that a zombie game?
Yeah, it's a zombie survival game. Very, very hardcore.
Is it a first-person shooter or is it a strategy game?
It's first and third person, but it is much more of a, you have to play it like real life. It's better to have other people. So if you get in a gunfight, you can flank. It's really, really interesting as a game. It's a lot different than a lot of the other first person shooter survival games out there, mainly because the map is huge. It's literally 15 square kilometers, so you can run to meet up with somebody. Me and Hipdad were playing. We've been playing for a while, but when we first had to meet up, for him to get to where I was, Like I had to run to him and we had to meet up and go back, and that still took us, I think, like 30, 45 minutes. If he had just tried to make it to where I was, like I was across the map, it would have taken like an hour and a half for him to make it to me.
So there's nothing like in Skyrim or any of the other Elder Scrolls where you can go to a fire and shadow travel to places on the map?
Nope.
Lame.
No. You can build a fire, but it doesn't do anything special other than heat you up or cook food.
I think I would be terrible. I used to be fairly good at first-person shooters, like probably 15 years ago. Not like competitive level. Like there were still 6-year-olds who could kick my ass, but I could at least aim. Now I can't aim. I'm just one of those guys who mashes all the buttons to see which, but in hopes that I actually hit something. I think they refer to this as spray and pray. I think it's exactly what that's my method of playing first-person shooters now. That's the reason why I stick to competitive card games. It's just better. All right, Drew, what about you? You doing anything interesting this week in open source or whatever?
I've been playing copious amounts of Wolfenstein 3D on a DOS emulator. No, I haven't. No, most of my free time has been spent outside in the either brutal heat or the torrential rain. But when I have been at the keyboard and not working my day job, I've been trying to write bash installation scripts, because I did I did one script that did everything about a year ago, and now I've been breaking it up into, hey, do you want to install awesome WM, whether it be vanilla or customized, and then actually there's 8 more window managers, all of them Xorg, just so you know. I'm not doing anything with Wayland at all, but BSPWM, DK Window Manager, DWM, Fluxbox, i3, IceWM, OpenBox, and Qtile. All of them either installed via a vanilla installation or a customized installation. So that's taking quite a bit of time in figuring out how that's going to work. But so every free moment I've been devoted to that.
So I have
That's
question.
a good number of tiling window managers there.
Yeah. So when does Drew OS come? I'm just asking. We have Zany
Never.
OS.
Absolutely never. I don't know how you guys do like distro maintaining. I just have no idea. If I can write these little scripts, it's like, okay, so install Debian headless, basically minimal install, and then run this, you're good. But not doing a distro. No way.
I wouldn't recommend it. Like ZanyOS is the closest I'll ever get to a distro, and that's why it's kind of a joke that it's called ZanyOS. It's just NixOS configuration files.
Okay.
Which does build into like quote unquote my distro, but it's not a distro. And good Lord, man, I will give it to anybody out there that's maintaining a distro. Like, all right, think about it like this. Does anyone else want to run Eric Dubois' YouTube channel? No. No. I can't do that. So, it's a lot of work. A lot. I'll give props to any distro maintainer.
Yeah, Eric has, like 1,200 videos at this point? I have no idea. It's like
4,
6 a day.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. He would do much better than just pro tip on the whole YouTube thing. He'd be much more better off in terms of YouTube if he took the Arco Linux off in the beginning of the title. Like if he put that at the end, he'd be much better in terms of SEO. But I don't think he cares because he doesn't do it for YouTube. He does it for people who use his distro. So then what does it matter? Also, it just makes it really hard to find stuff. He has tutorials on everything. And even if you don't use Arco, you can go there and find some great tutorials on some stuff. Like if you use Plasma and you find out you're having a bug, a lot of times he'll cover the fix on his channel, even though it's not like something Arco or Arch related. But finding it is very hard because of the way he titles stuff. But I should.
But wait, hold up. Before you go into your week, Matt, I got a question for you. Do you do the same thing I do, where occasionally you'll go to his channel and scroll through his videos just looking for gems that you didn't know he had already posted?
Yeah,
I do that all the time.
Yeah, he has loads of stuff. He should really someone should take all of his videos and put it on PeerTube just in case YouTube decides to to Yeet's channel. That way we have like an archived version of everything. The only person I know who did that for Terminal for Life is Josh. He says he has all of Terminal for Life's videos. He should definitely post them on a YouTube instance somewhere so we, have access to that stuff. It would be a community service. Anyways, for me personally, I've had some. Well, I've done two things. First off, I've been trying to fix the audio that I've been struggling with now for like a week and a half. So, and I think I'm getting there slowly. So yes, there's still some the background noise. The air conditioner is not going to go away, but at least in the edited version, I should be able to have much better audio because now I have acoustic panels on the wall, so that should fix the reverb. I've also learned a little bit more about noise gates and noise reduction in Audacity than I did before. I used noise reduction, but I didn't use a noise gate in Audacity. I relied on the noise gate from OBS. I don't know if it's one is better than the other, but it seems that doing some stuff in post makes it a little bit better. So I've done some testing, and the audio should be better in the edited version than it was last week. Last week it sounded like I was in a well, and you could hear, echoes everywhere. It was not great. I apologize for that. I'm working on it. It's still not going to be perfect. I'm still going to continue to work on it and make it better. So that's one of the things I've done. The other thing that I've done really isn't something that I've done, but more a way that I've been feeling is that. So I'm still using GNOME, and I don't wanna anymore. I really don't wanna anymore, but I am, because it's the most stable desktop environment that uses Wayland out there. I've tried. I'm like the kid who sneaks around after their parents have told them no. And I need to find some way to do the thing that I wasn't supposed to do. So I've installed. I actually posted this in Discord a few days ago. In a 3-day period, I installed KDE. I uninstalled GNOME. I reinstalled GNOME. I uninstalled KDE. I uninstalled GNOME again. I reinstalled KDE, and then I uninstalled KDE and reinstalled GNOME again. Like 8 different times, back and forth, back and forth. Now, some of that was because I was working on some bugs reports that I had filed for the KDE guys. They wanted some more information to fill out the bug report, so that was my original excuse to install KDE, and it was a good excuse, helping out in the community or whatever. After that, though, I didn't really have a good excuse except for that I couldn't make up my mind. So every time GNOME is fucking stable, guys. I can't break this thing even if I tried, and I have tried. And if you watched, I did a video on all the extensions that I have installed. I have like 50 extensions installed. Not all of them are activated, but the best way to break GNOME is install a bunch of extensions. I can't even do that. Even when I did think I broke it, it was just a matter of deleting a config file and basically starting over again with that particular extension. That's all I did. It's nuts, but I'm so bored. I'm so bored with it. It's stable and it works, and I'm getting a lot of work done, and I just kill me now. Where's my tinkering? Damn it!
But you do have a multiple monitor system with GNOME.
I do.
I have one simple question: has GNOME finally defaulted to allowing workspaces on every monitor, not just the default or the extra monitors? I can't remember which one it was.
All right, so by default, the way that it is that the workspaces are tied together. So right now I'm on workspace 1, that entails all 3 monitors. So if I switch to workspace 2, all 3 monitors switch to workspace 2. It's not great.
That's even worse than when I remember.
I know. I've talked to a couple of the GNOME developers who do happen to follow me on Mastodon, which is just a phenomenal sentence for me to say, given my traditional views on GNOME, right? And this is their way of doing things. This is the way they like to do things. It's not going to change. If you want to have individual workspaces per monitor, you use a window manager. That's their way of doing things. And fair game. Like that, that's the way you want to do it. It's stupid. But if that's the way you want to do it, it's just it's whatever.
So, man, you've become a chronic desktop environment hopper as opposed to a distro hopper.
Okay. I'm really not though.
But that's what it sounds like.
It
That's all I'm
does.
saying.
It does. It sounds pathetic, but it's because I have this desperate need. Okay, I have this desperate want to use Plasma. Like, I want to use Plasma so badly that I will go through what I just explained. I will uninstall it and reinstall it. But it is so god awful buggy that you just can't do it. Like, and I love the KDE guys. They work so hard. In terms of community interaction, the KDE guys blow GNOME out of the effing water. Like, it's not even close, right? They're all active in the community. They're all friendly. You know, if you have a bug, chances are like the head honcho guy is going to be the one to respond to it. You know, like the guy that's always out there, right? It's fantastic, but there's just so many small, like, none of them are like game breaking bugs. Like, you could use it just fine. Like, that's why every time I say GNOME or KDE's buggy, everyone's like, well, it works fine for me. It works fine for me too, but it has all these little things that are wrong.
Yeah.
And
I feel like that's been the case with KDE for a long time. It's like death by 1,000 cuts.
Yeah.
It's not anything major. It's always been small bugs or like small annoyances that aren't really bugs. It's like design choices that you wouldn't have done.
Yeah, exactly. It's just all these little bitty things, and even like the one or two big things that do like affect me or whatever. Those are usually easy to fairly fix, and they're usually problems on my end and not bugs, right? So I want to use KDE as my desktop environment. It's not my favorite desktop environment. I want to use XFCE, but it's not Wayland, and until it is Wayland, I can't use it because of stupid resolution problems that I have because of my dumbass having multiple monitors. That's a me problem, and an Xorg being 900 years old problem. That has nothing to do with XFC. So I only have two choices: GNOME and KDE. KDE's buggy, but I want to use it. GNOME is boring and very stable, so that's the one that I ended up actually using. So that's been my week of just me gazing lustfully at KDE Plasma and wanting to use it, but not being able to because of the things that annoy me, and being on GNOME to the point where last night I reconfigured the layout of GNOME 3 times. I went from my traditional Windows 10 like layout to Windows 11 where, you know, everything was centered on the bar, and I was like, yeah, that's not quite original enough. So now, I shit you not, I'm using the Ubuntu Unity style layout. I have the big honking panel along the side and the bar along the top. I'm going to make a video about this, so I don't want to give it all away, but I have to tell you, Ubuntu's actually kind of onto something in terms of layout, because this is actually kind of working for me. It won't work for me for very long, but it's kind of cool. So yeah, that's my problem. I have issues. Like someone messaged me somewhere today. I think it was on Mastodon. I told him I tweeted out something about being on GNOME for 45 days or whatever. He was like, "Wow, I don't know how you possibly can switch between things, you know, every couple of months." For me, it would be like moving, and I'm the weird one here because I switch things constantly I'm used to moving from different. Like, at one point before I did my OpenSUSE reinstall, I had, I think, 12 window managers installed, and XFCE and GNOME, and I think at one point I also had Plasma, which that was a godful mess. I had 6,000 packages installed on OpenSUSE. Wow. That's the reason why I did a reinstall. I actually, what am I at now?
6,000 packages, dude! Like that is a house of cards, brother.
Okay, so I reinstalled probably like 2 months ago. I'm at 3154 right now.
Oh my god!
Yeah,
you're over double me. Like that is wild.
Well, I mean,
I wouldn't say wild because I did cut down the packages quite a bit.
Also, Nix and a lot of other distros count packages differently. OpenSUSE counts every little dependency. It's very much like Debian. Debian counts packages differently than Arch does.
I just counted to see how many packages I have. 1,600.
Yeah.
I was scared there for a second. I was like, please God, don't let it be like 8,000.
No, 1,600, and I feel very bloated at this point as well.
Yeah. All right. Anyways, so that's our week in open source. You guys can just make fun of me all you want. I understand from a rational point of view that I'm not the type of person who probably should be near computers because I have severe ADD or something.
Nah, anyone who wants to, pick on you too much for switching like desktop environments, like window managers or whatever, all that much, just know over the past like 4 weeks, I have changed my custom keyboard layout like 6 times. Getting like that muscle memory and that stuff memorized and being decent, like, dude, I have knocked myself back down to 8 and 12 words per minute like 5 times. It's
so
rough.
Yeah, that's not abnormal at all, actually, Tyler. When you switch to a split keyboard, you're supposed to take like 3 months to get that layout right.
Yes, yeah. No, I mean, like, switching as a decision is insane 6 times. Like, I've had minor things where I'm like, I'd like to move this key.
For a minute there, I thought like you went from Dvorak to Workman to Colmac DH to back to QWERTY. Now that would be a problem.
Kind of. That's kind of. I switched from Dvorak.
Froze. Either that I froze.
You froze for a second for me, but
Tyler.
It could be my internet.
Drew, you can actually still hear me though, right?
I can.
All right.
Yeah.
I can hear you guys. Can you guys not hear me?
You went bad.
You're
You went bad internet there for a minute.
It's probably because my whole family's over. Someone probably loaded up a 4K YouTube video.
streaming 8K out in the on the big screen. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the main topic. So this one here was actually not my topic. So the topic this week is how to get started with a home lab. And I'm going to expand that out just a little bit into talking about, do you need a home lab? What do we use it for? What we use ours for? What we'd like to use it for in the future if we have, the opportunity and the whatever. So we'll kind of go as broad as possible. But this particular topic was from 2 people when I asked for topics. One was Lord Dragon, and one was Josh on Mastodon. Not Josh as in our Josh, but Josh JTW, I think what does he goes by on Mastodon? I'm not sure if those are the right letters. Both of you, because I used your topic, ping me on Discord or Mastodon or via email, and you can choose from a sticker, a magnet, or a t-shirt from the Linux Cast store, and I'll send it to you free of charge. You win. Anyways, you guys both had the exact same topic, so I chose both of you. Just ping me and I will get your information and send you your gear. So the topic, how to get started with a home lab. So Tyler and Drew, you guys are probably, Tyler, I don't know what you're still doing in terms of home lab stuff. Do you still have your home lab actually up and running, or are you?
It is not up and running right now, and that's mainly
Tyler, you need Ethernet, my friend.
Is it still messing up?
Well, Drew, why don't you tell us then what's your current situation?
He's back.
Oh, he's back? Tyler? You have crap internet, my friend.
Yeah, I don't know why.
May just be the Jitsi thing. This is the reason why we didn't stop using Jitsi, if you remember. Because it did that randomly for no reason. It could just be a lot of people using this instance of Jitsi for all we know.
Yeah, I have no idea. But, yeah, mine's just down because I can't decide between running all of my Docker stuff through NixOS or Proxmox. Like, I've had a really hard time figuring out whether or not I just want to set up my home lab through NixOS. I really like Proxmox, but I think me developing like ZanyOS and like doing my gaming stuff is going to be way more difficult on Proxmox. So yeah, I've just been trying to figure out what I'm going to do about that. And I've put it off since I've had the brain fog lately. I don't want to like get started on a project like that and then forget what I'm doing or, mess up small aspects of it.
Does the hardware that you were going to use support GPU pass-through?
Yes.
So
I can do that.
So you could theoretically just run NixOS in a VM and do your stuff that way, right?
The only problem is I will have to buy the other version of the motherboard that I'm using now, because this one, I only have extra PCI 1X slots. So, yeah.
When I started this, I had no clue that I'd need more PCIe slots. Like, if you're going to do this, just a pro tip, and if you expect yourself to actually, expand in the future, find yourself a motherboard. If you're going to build, if you're building stuff, and you're not just pulling stuff, that you already have, and you're going to buy something, do yourself a favor and buy something with extra PCIe slots. You won't be upset that you did. Eventually,
don't be like me and see an extra M.2 slot and be like, oh, that's great, and buy it, and then realize, no, it's only got one 16X slot. All the rest, it's got 3 other 1X slots. Like, cool, I can throw an extra Wi-Fi card in. Yay.
Yeah.
I'm glad you said that, Tyler, because I was afraid that the episode would be like, use Proxmox. Goodbye, everybody.
Drew, you don't use Proxmox at all, do you?
No, I've never used it. But where is it? This little USB has Proxmox on it, and I was going to throw it into the my test machine just to see, but I didn't get to that today. But I am using TrueNAS Scale, and with its application now. Last podcast, somebody put in the chat about Jailmaker, which is kind of an addendum to TrueNAS Scale. And I am all about that. I saw one video and I'm fascinated by that. So that is probably the next thing I'll be looking at is Jailmaker in addition to that goes with TrueNAS Scale.
What does it do?
So basically, it's kind of like Docker on a regular, distribution, basically, because it works outside. But you are creating the data shares in TrueNAS Scale, and it's working with it. I wish I could give you a better explanation than I just did, but like I said. I saw one video on it and I thought to myself, wow, this could be the answer because as I mentioned last week, the applications that work with TrueNAS Scale are kind of hit and miss. Like I can get fresh RSS to work well, and then there's a few other things I can get to work well. However, not everything. Like I tried to put in MiniFlux, for example, and it just didn't work correctly. So I didn't even have I wanted to use it as an RSS server, but it didn't work correctly. So, I mean, I do have fresh RSS, but I was just trying to compare the two.
So, I think I've gone the craziest in terms of home lab stuff. Like, so I have a HP workstation that has 128 gigabytes of RAM, and then I also have approximately, 40 terabytes of storage between the rush drives that I have and the NVMe stuff that I have. And the reason why I decided, and I've talked about this before, is just that originally I was just doing this to nerd out, but I've since kind of transitioned to doing it into wanting to save a little bit of money in terms of like monthly subscription stuff, and I've been able to do that with Plex and with the Kavita stuff that I've been doing for the book stuff and a couple of other things that I've been using. And I found that it's great, but it's also been a rabbit hole of stuff that I don't know, which we'll talk more about later. But I think that one of the things that I found most interesting about this entire situation, or this entire journey, just has been the amount of things that I've discovered. It's been very much like using Linux for the first time. Like so when I first started this thing, and just asked Tyler, I was gonna do OpenSUSE on a thing, right? And I messed it all up, and that was on me. And then he told me about Proxmox. I'd heard about Proxmox, I had no clue what it was, other than it had something to do with VMs. And I got that going. And since then, Proxmox has been awesome. Like, it is so freaking good because you can basically do anything you want with it. It's because it's just running a whole bunch of VMs. So if you want, or Linux LXC containers, right? You can set this thing up to do literally anything you want to do. And yeah, you're going to be constrained by some of your hardware choices. Like if you don't have enough memory, you're gonna you're not gonna be able to start 100 different VMs or whatever. But as long as you keep that in mind, you can run any operating system you want, create containers for anything that you want. If you want to do something like you want to run pfSense or OpenSense or Pi-hole or whatever, you can do that inside of a VM and use that as your router or your ad blocking mechanism. You can do all that side of a VM. You don't have to worry about having separate hardware for each of those things, which is really cool. And there's just so much stuff that you can do, and every day that I use it, I discover something more that it can do, and I've nerded out. So I've actually created a second node in my data center.
Yeah, you're building out I was literally just about to say, building out a data center is so fun with Proxmox.
Yeah. Just on a side note, don't do it the way that I do it. You really, if you're going to build out more than one node, you have to do 3. Like really 3 is where you need to be. I don't have the hardware for 3 yet, but it's not that big a deal. As long as you manage the votes properly so that you don't have to worry about, if one of them goes offline, you're not being able to do anything. So just make sure you go through some tutorials if you're going to do it, in certain ways. But overall, has been just absolute perfection. It's been so good. There are some hardware choices that I take back, and maybe I'll talk about that in a little bit later. Because our Josh is he'd have a major told you so if he knew the problems that I've been going in with USB storage, because he told me so. Don't buy USB storage if you're going to use Proxmox. It just is not. It's not going to work out well for you, and it hasn't worked out well for me. It's fine, but it's definitely not great.
You can use it. You can use it. It is a pain in the ass, though.
Yeah, the biggest problem, just since I brought it up, is that USB pass-through is not stable. Okay, it's absolutely not stable. I don't know how that compares to like GPU pass-through, because it uses completely different technology. It's not the same. So the biggest problem that you have is that sometimes that connection, that pass-through, breaks for no reason. It's not going to tell you in a log anywhere other than the VM can no longer find your drives. And it can be random. Sometimes the VM will be running fine with full connection to all of your drives, just like it's supposed to, and then randomly 2 or 3 of them will just drop out. And for no reason. Like I said, it just says it's no longer connected. And then you can remount them, or you can reboot. And I've been going through this whole reboot cycle where I have to reboot it 4 or 5 times to make sure all 4 drives are actually freaking connected through USB pass-through. I've remounted them with USB pass-through a couple times because the names have changed. Like that's a thing that I've been doing. Like, just if you have the means, do SAS. Okay, just if you have the means, do SAS. They're you can do external SAS and mini SAS and all this stuff that I don't really know as much about as I should. But that's my next big investment, is to actually get a different enclosure that has the SATA connections on the outside instead of using USB. That's going to be the whole thing that I'm coming up with next. But it has to wait a bit, because it's going to be because I have to get the enclosure, I have to get the card, which brings me to another problem that you just talked about, Tyler, with the PCIe stuff, because I already have all of my PCIe lanes populated by 2 extra NVMe drives that I put in there. So I don't know how I'm going to, because it's not going to be great. What I really wish, and this is just another aside, is that I didn't have a problem with the server sound. Like, if you get like an actual regular server, like you can put in a rack, those things are really fucking loud. But if I didn't have a problem with that, I'd have one of those things, because you can get like one with like a whole bunch of hard drive bays, and they all have a back plane, and you just pop them in there and you're good to go. It just sounds like a fucking aircraft carrier,
Yeah. That's been like my kind of problem, because like the really nice thing that I saw, like Jonathan bought like K80s or something like that, the server like NVIDIA cards. You can get them like for like $80 online. They're super cheap, but like they have like really good horsepower, but they don't have any display ports. Like, you have to use them as like a pass through in like some kind of server situation. Like, you wouldn't use them as a regular graphics card. But like those things, they come with no fans. The amount of airflow you have to get over those things, like you're buying a 10,000 RPM fan, probably 2 or 3, and I mean, those things make ungodly amounts of noise. if I had a nice closet where I could get some ventilation in there, yeah, I'd do that kind of stuff, but I just don't. And also I know with like my closet in my room, even if I made it like somehow be like temperature like level and good, the noise from that, like I wouldn't be able to sleep. It's still like 4 feet away from me. Like it doesn't matter. There's a door there.
Yeah, and that'd be my problem too. Is it would have to go in this room here, and I record in this room. I sleep in this room. Like it just wouldn't work because I don't have Ethernet run throughout the house. And like, yeah, I could do some janky like stuff where I'm running Ethernet cables along the roof or along the ceiling or whatever with putting staples to hold it up, or whatever. Like I could do that, but hey, it's janky, but whatever. But Tyler, we came up with an idea a few episodes ago, or I don't know, maybe it wasn't enough. Maybe it was somebody else in the chat where we just said we're gonna buy like one of those $6,000 sheds, like they're like 8x10 little things, put it out in the yard, run electricity and Ethernet to it, and use that as your home server / office space. Like that I seriously have considered doing that. Like, yeah, it'd be expensive, and because I'm going to pour concrete to make sure everything's level and stuff, like all that stuff. But it sounds like such a fantastic idea because I could use the space. I could put whatever I wanted out there. Wouldn't have to worry about noise. It'd be great. But I don't know. Drew, just kidding. We have gone around on the topic.
I was gonna say something, but it's like when I bought my house. I walked in and I immediately saw this cabinet where my internet comes in and then feeds every single room in the house with a wired connection. And I thought to my wife looked at me, it's like, what does that do? I said, this is our house, man. Because you guys were talking about, like, I don't know, at least one episode ago, it said, I bought a new switch or something, and I thought to myself, do you know how many switches I have in this house? I have 16 and I have a 16 switch in this room alone. Actually, that's not true. I have a 16 and a 5, and then downstairs I've got another 8 switch, and then my wife's office, she only needs one connection, so it comes right out of the wall. I don't use Wi-Fi hardly at all, except for the phone.
At first, you got me there for a second. I thought you were about to say 16 of the like cheap 4 ports. I was like, good Lord, man, you got them things scattered around.
You can just get yourself a 48 port TP link, and you I was gonna say, like, I'm really jealous. Do you have a spare bedroom and do you mind server sound? Because I could just have my home server in your house.
There's right back there. That's because I'm on the second story, and right there's my son's room, and he doesn't use it anymore. So there you go, Matt.
The only problem is I shouldn't say that because I wanted to dox you, but I don't want to move all the way down there. Man, really hot. It's hot enough here. All right. So Drew, what do you use in terms of actual hardware? And how did you start? How did you start out?
What I have right now is I can tell the case itself. So is a Johnsbow N3. Okay. The Johnsbow N3 has, I wish I could take a picture, but basically it's a small form factor that has a door on the front where you can slide 8 mechanical drives into the front of the, basically the front of the case. Okay. So I'm not using just a home lab. This is my NAS that also has home lab capability. So I have right now 7 drives, 5 16 terabyte drives plus 2 6 terabyte drives. And so the first 5 16s are using ZS2 RAID, and then the other 2 6 terabyte drives are using are just being mirrored. So I have 5 applications running on that particular machine. It only has about 32 gig of RAM, but it's fine for what I'm using. But I showed you, Matt, a few months ago that I was running Fresh RSS as a, serving up a RSS server. And then I have Image running. I have Kavita running, even though it's stopped right now. And then I have a few more things that are either stopped. Oh, I do have a Nextcloud instance that's not being used right now because I actually have Nextcloud running on a different machine altogether. That's not containerized. It's a Nextcloud and it's Plex on, and neither one is containerized on this other server. And one of the reasons why is because I'm connecting it to a over-the-air antenna that's, we talked about this before, but an over-the-air antenna that is using silicon dust, so an HD home run, so that I can watch television, over-the-air television, and it plugs directly into the network, which is much easier to find in the Plex that's not containerized. So that's a long-winded explanation, but I started out, though, because I was really fascinated with, I had a QNAP server at one point, a QNAP NAS that I bought just from Amazon. And it was either that or Synology. And that's how I kind of got started using applications that were on the server. But, that kind of brought me to, hey, I'm going to create, I'm going to do just start off with a machine that has Debian on it, and then start with that when I wanted to basically retire that QNAP or Synology server. And that's what led me to building this NAS, which is running TrueNAS Scale on it.
That's a nice setup. That is a good setup.
What about you, Tyler? What hardware are you using, and what do you do with it when it's on?
Well, my tower is custom built Xeon, 16 core, 32 thread, 64 gigs of RAM. I've got a 6600 XT in it, and I'm mainly, if I'm running Proxmox, I've got a ZanyOS instance going where I can work from there. Sometimes set up with a GPU pass through, depending on if I can get it to work. Because I do have a PCIe 1X graphics card, but it is quite literally a piece of dog water, and it doesn't even want to work half the time. So yeah, I'll have to get something there. But if I'm just running NixOS on it, I've got, well, actually ZanyOS running on it. And then when I'm running containers, I normally have Jellyfin. That's pretty much a must for me. I really like Jellyfin. Plex is good too, but I just, when I got into it, I had the option between them, and I decided to go with Jellyfin. Let me see. I also run Qubit Torrent. I've normally got a dashboard manager running, something like Homar or something like that. Can't remember. I do run a few services. I know Bitwarden is one I like to run. Sometimes I play around with Nextcloud too, but I don't know. Nextcloud is not one of those things that I need. I like to play around with it.
My thought on Nextcloud was I wanted to do away. This is what kind of put me into this whole idea of doing away with Google stuff. I didn't want to use Google for Mail or Drive or Google Photos any longer. And so to do away with that, I thought to myself, I need replacements for all this stuff because I was completely entrenched in the Google ecosystem for over 10 years, and I wanted to do away with that. So in order to have something that would replace Google Drive, I thought, well, Nextcloud essentially is a file server. And that's all I'm looking to do from that. I don't need it to write documents like you would with, Microsoft Word or Google, whatever that's called. I forget.
Google Docs.
Yeah. I don't need that. I just need it to be a file server. And that was the goal for that particular instance.
The only thing recently that's piqued my interest about Nextcloud is that Nextcloud Talk. That does seem pretty interesting. I hope it's going well and it's going to function great, because I am going to check it out here before too long. But I I don't see myself like leaving, like being like, hey boys, like Discord's old and useless. Everyone should be using Nextcloud Talk. I don't think that's how it's going to work out.
I don't trust any of our internet enough for us to use it for the podcast. You know, because like all three of us could host, you know, Nextcloud or whatever, and then use it. But just from the way Jitsi here has worked tonight, you know, none of us have a stable enough connection to where we could host it ourselves.
But I think it's the server. I don't think it's us, honestly. If I had to guess,
probably a lot of people. Yeah, you're right. I don't know. Maybe we'd have to just try it like off air or whatever and see how it works. Because you're right. That talk does kind of sound interesting. But I don't know. It'd be interesting.
Yeah, that one's a big gamble. We'd have to figure out how it works.
I was actually thinking about building a Jitsi server so that we could talk just us, just for us, and that would be it. Nobody else.
It's probably a good idea. We probably should set that up.
I've thought about it, but I looked into the way of doing it. It just looks like it's going to be a pain in the rear to do it. But also, like, I also thought about, like, you know, Linodes or whatever they call them now aren't that expensive. I could just do a, you know, $10 a month Linode or whatever and have plenty of bandwidth or whatever for us to use it. But it just, I don't know. I'm lazy.
Yeah, I mean, who really wants to go through the effort?
Right? It's like this works. It works fine, you know. So Nextcloud for me is like, I have it. It's running, but I don't use it for anything but notes. So I blame you, Drew. And I also thank you, Drew, because you told me something a couple weeks ago about an app called IOTAS, IOTAS, right? And that thing has replaced Google Keep for me forever. I've looked for something like this for ages, and it doesn't. It basically is Google Keep. It doesn't have a lot of features, and I can't use it for everything. I still use Obsidian when I want to be organized about stuff, you know, because I can do trees, I can do embedded files, and a whole bunch of other stuff. And the Markdown support is better in Obsidian than it is in IOTAS. But in terms of, hey, I have an idea for a video, I need to put it, you know, somewhere where I'm not going to lose it, I just put it in Nextcloud Notes on the phone. It syncs through Nextcloud, and I can then get to all that stuff on IOTAS. That's all I needed to do, and it works fantastically well. It's going to have the same problem that Google Keep does, in that once I've used it for years and years or whatever, if I do, I'll just have, you know, a ton of notes, no organization whatsoever, but I'll at least own the notes. And also, because everything is just saved as .md files, unlike Joplin, I'm not tied into IOTAS whatsoever. If I decide someday along the line I want to manage the stuff with them, or I want to go use Genie, or I want to do something, whatever I want to do, it's just because they're Markdown files, I can just do that. They're all saved in Nextcloud as Markdown files. It's awesome. Yeah, so my note-taking solution is basically, that's all I use Nextcloud for. I thought I would do the photos thing, but then I started using Image, and Image is awesome. I mean, it's so freaking good. And they warn you, like, it's unstable or whatever, but I haven't found that it's unstable at all. Like, I haven't had any problems. It doesn't work well on iOS 18, but that's a me problem, because I'm a dumbass and installed iOS 18.
Wait, the beta?
Yeah, the beta. Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah, my buddy did that. It looks really cool, but he changed, like, I think you could change the theme or something, and like half of his icons didn't work.
Yeah,
I was like, yeah, no.
They've got a long ways to go, but that's another conversation. So, all right, so you guys have talked about what you guys have in terms of what you have on yours. I mentioned my hardware earlier, so I don't need to go over it, but I have a ton. I went a little Docker crazy. From a guy who had no clue what the fuck Docker was 5 weeks ago, I have now many Dockers. I have Dockerized everything. So, a couple things I don't, before I get into the Dockers, a couple things I don't Docker. So I run Proxmox on my server. I have 3 VMs that I run all the time. I have a few that are off that are just kind of like testing, but 3 that are on all the time. I have one, which is the main one. That one hosts, that has my USB drives passed through via USB pass through, and has, and it runs NFS and serves everything else through NFS and AutoFS. By the way, if you haven't checked out AutoFS, it's fucking awesome. You should definitely use it. And that also has my Plex on it. So Plex isn't containerized. It's just downloaded through the Debian package, because I run Ubuntu on literally everything. I don't know why I chose Ubuntu and not Debian. I just did. Probably ease of install. So I have that one there, and then I have another.
Is it Ubuntu server or is it Ubuntu
server? Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. I didn't need the UI or whatever. It just runs the server mechanism. And then I have another one which is also Ubuntu. That one's my Docker machine, which is all my Docker stuff, and Portainer in specific, which manages all the Docker stuff. And then I have one called Jack Sparrow, which runs a VPN all the time for things. You can, it's called Jack Sparrow. You do the math. Anyways, on the Docker machine, I run. I have 23. I have 20 containers that I run. Now some of them are just So some of them are off. So I have 3 off of those. So I have 17 that are running. So I have a Vault Warden. I have something called Speed Test Tracker, which runs speed tests, internet speed tests every, like 3 or 4 hours or whatever, and keeps a log of all the speeds that run through that server, so you can kind of keep track of how your internet speed is doing. I don't really need it, but it does it. I have one called, obviously, Portainers, which manages all. I have Nginx Proxy Manager. I have Nextcloud. I have Kavita. I have Image, which has, of those 20 containers, 4 of those are Image. So that it's a little bit confusing. I also have Homepage, which is my homepage, and that's awesome. It's way better than Homar, by the way. It's just so good. I have Fresh RSS, and I have Audiobook Shelf, and I have something it's called Actual. It's for finance tracking. I haven't used it all that much. It's always off. I'm not sure.
I haven't used that one, but I've read about other people using it, and apparently that is one of the best tools out there for it. It's very, very good.
Yeah, that's what I. Oh, and the last one I have is called Tautulli, Tautulli. I'm telling you right now, it's the best thing I've ever seen. If you use Plex, and I think that there's actually a Jellyfin version as well, if you want. Basically, it just monitors your Plex server for what it's doing. So so if you want to find out how many times you played the latest Taylor Swift song, it will listen to that server and will be able to tell you how often you've played that song, or how often you've watched that movie, or how many hours you've spent watching movies, or how many hours you've spent listening to music. Which, like, if you have 2 different music collections, it will tell you how many hours you've spent in each music collection. It's amazing.
That's interesting. It's kind of like your own media analytics for your home. That's cool.
It's basically scrobbling everything that you do in Plex and puts them in awesome charts, and it's just fantastic. You can even get a mobile app if you're that interested in tracking it. I haven't gone that far, but I do have it set up so that, I can on homepage, I have a little widget that tells me what's playing right now if someone else is playing.
Ruh-roh.
Drew, you did your thing again. You split into 2. It's like that. What's that movie from the early 2000s or late 90s or whatever? Multiplicity or whatever.
Yeah.
Multiple Drews. I'm gonna kick the one without video.
There you go.
And
now we're out of order again. Damn it!
Yes.
It did the same thing last week. I don't know. I don't understand. Maybe we should just go without the names.
That's probably gonna have to if Jitsy's gonna keep this up.
Why do you do this to me, Jitsy? I don't understand. It's really weird. But anyways, yeah, that's basically what I run. In terms of the things that I would want to run, I'm sure that I have. So I use Vivaldi as my browser, and one of the things that allows you to do is collect a whole bunch of tabs in a stack. And I have 13 tabs in a stack right now of just things that I want to try. So I have there's something called iVentoi. So basically it's Ventoi, but hosted in a Docker container. So you can basically try you install your Linux distros through the network using iVentoi. You never have to carry around a USB stick again. It just basically, you go to this URL or whatever, and it will allow you to do the thing. I'm not exactly sure how it works, but it sounds freaking awesome. So there's...
Well, you do know through Proxmox you can do the same thing, right?
Oh, I'm sure you can. But iVentoi sounds awesome, and I wanted to try it. So anyways, I have a ton of that stuff, and there's actually a couple cheat sheets that have hundreds of different Docker containers that you can try, and that's where I just keep going through. Like, oh, I want to try this. At one point, I had like 57 tabs open of stuff that I wanted to try, and it was,
dude,
I have a problem.
Matt, like, it's like watching an evolution, like, of a person. You went from like having a hard time trying to get like the first container running. Now you've got way more than I do. You're checking out way more, and you finally come out and publicly declared your, private affair with GNOME. Like, there's so much changing. This is a wonderful new world.
I don't have a private affair with GNOME. I have an abusive relationship with GNOME is what I have. It's not healthy for either of us at this point, okay?
Matt, we all love you. This is your intervention.
I don't want to use GNOME anymore. I just don't want to use it anymore. Why do I have to use it? Oh.
You're like, I just can't stop.
Why can't KDE just be stable? Why can't it just be stable? It's horrible. Okay, so before we wrap up, what I would like to do is go around and talk about our dream setup. Like, if money was no option whatsoever, we all won. The three of us decided we were going in on a lottery ticket together, and we all won the Mega Millions. So it's like $1 billion. We have enough money to do whatever the hell we want. We split it 3 ways. What does your home lab look like that's different with that amount of money than what you have now? Do you make any changes? Do you clone Techno Tim and make all of his changes? What do you do? So I know I'm kind of dropping this on you guys without warning you, but
I'm ready.
Well, good. Tyler, you can go first. What would you do if you had that type of money in terms of home lab stuff?
All right. So the first thing I'm doing is I am purchasing a RISC-V development board that has a minimum of 128 threads, runs at least 2.8 per core. Hopefully we can get that up. It needs to have 300 and something gigabytes of memory. I want 320, whatever, some wild number. I want double 128. We're getting that thing Mac Daddy with storage, I don't know, 40 terabytes. Why not? And then also I'm paying for software development. So I will fund projects with the extra money so that I can have all of the containers that I want, the Jellyfin, the qBittorrent, manage my download, all of that stuff. But I also want to be able to have NixOS as either an ARM build or an x86 build for development, both running on that device. Obviously the x86 would be through a translation layer, whatever, but have both of those running and be able to take the GPUs, which I didn't even touch on, that I want 2 GPUs in this RISC-V server, one pass through into that. And I'd probably also, to get the hardware in the first place, some of the money would probably have to go to R&D into the actual whole system itself.
I had no clue where the answer for either of you guys were going to go, but RISC-V was not on the bingo card. I'm just
dude, I got all that money, dude. We're spending it on development. RISC-V is getting a whole new facelift. We're getting Hyperland on RISC-V.
I think that if we're going to take on Intel, we're going to have to play the lottery a little bit more. We're going to need more money.
Hey, if we got luck like that, winning twice is nothing, man.
Did you guys hear? There was a guy out in totally off topic, but there was a guy out in California who won the lottery 3 times, and each time he had someone steal a good portion of the money out of his car or out of his Suburban or whatever. It happened 3 different times. First off, that's shady as fuck. Surely he's doing that for tax write-off purposes or some shit. But also, if not, are you that? I mean, how can you be that lucky and that dumb at the same time?
Who leaves that money? Who wins the lottery and then leaves the money in their car? That's insane.
Oh, okay. People are dumb. All right, that was completely off topic. Drew, if you had unlimited amounts of money, what would you do for your home server that you don't do now?
Whatever Tyler says goes.
Yeah, what you're saying.
That's what I'm good. No, you know what? I don't know that I'm doing a whole lot. I don't know that I need a whole lot, frankly. And when I think about that kind of money, I don't know that I'm investing that much into my home lab, honestly. You know,
Your nerd answer severely disappoints me.
Hey, well, look, you did start off by saying we split the money. Like we went in on a ticket, we split the money. I'm totally game if Drew wants to go in on this with all that money. We're probably going to need it all.
I have a feeling that Drew's one of those people who would invest wisely and probably rule the world after 10 years. I mean,
I'm getting old, dude. I don't know. I don't know that I have 10 years, but I got.
Oh, please. You've got 10 years. Come on, man.
You're very young. You'd have the money and wisely spend it and invest it, and while us nerds are creating a home lab made of gold.
I have a feeling Drew would pull.
He's still gonna drive like a '97 Beretta.
He's gonna pull us off to the side and be like, "Yo, boys, like, look, y'all are thinking small here, okay? Like, one machine." He's like, "We're gonna develop a data center. We're gonna sell it out to people."
That was my first thought. Actually, it was like, how can I leverage this and just dominate in cloud computing? But that seemed like an easy answer. I think.
No, I knew it. I knew you'd be the type of person to, like, after the podcast, and it'd be like, "Yo, like, we needed to start a business, like, make sure we never had to pay for anything the rest of our lives, like." 300 mil is a lot of money.
Yeah. The whole thing would be like, okay, so I'm like flying these guys in to like teach me how to do all this shit. I'm like, hey, Techno Tim, you're going to come stay at the house for a while and we're going to talk about all of this, You're
going to create a network that I'll never in my life understand how to operate.
I won't understand it. That's why I'm going to hire these dudes,
You're going to have your own IT department. I'm not going to be doing this myself. I have an IT guy.
Hell yeah.
All right. So my answer would be that I'd probably have, I think I would go crazy for a while. It would be tough not to with that kind of money. You get yourself a new house, probably a new car. But if I would want a dedicated server room and a rack, and give myself more switches than Drew has, because now we're in a competition. I gotta have more switches than Drew has. But I think that eventually I'd come to the point where I'm already running all the Docker containers that exist. There are no more. So what happened then, I don't know. But I mean,
wait, can we agree with any of our ideas here? If there's money left over, just for the laughs and to severely upset some people, we go out and purchase, with whatever money left over, Mac Minis, a whole bunch of them, and use them as like this, netted meshed server just to upset people.
I definitely want to invest in our own Jitsi server. That's all I care about at this point.
That'd be good.
Well, also, I mean, and this is something we should definitely do if we win that kind of money, is that we put servers in each other's houses. That way we have an offsite backup of everything. So we'll just rotate backups between all of our McMansions. And then that way we have the perfect backup solution. Because that'd be, I mean, real talk here though, I think it would be awesome if like a whole bunch of Linux nerds who had fairly good internet got together and just said, hey, you want to know what? We all have this amount of space, and we can all, back up. We can all put together like a backup pool, so we can all like back up stuff. The problem, of course, is that you'd have to make sure that's encrypted, because there's going to be one asshole on the fucking network who's not really a friend, but he wanted to take advantage of the plan. So you want to be encrypted, but also not everyone has like 100 awesome data caps. Like so, and then there's the asshole Matt who wants to back up all of his movies and TV shows and ebooks and stuff. He's trying to send 40 terabytes through the fucking network.
That's the real problem with all of us nerds. We all have access to plenty of data, and there's going to be a lot of it to back up. a lot. So,
Yeah. All right. So just to answer the question, do you need a home lab? Which we didn't really answer.
I was
So
gonna say,
that was definitely a clickbait title. Apologies for that. We were going to answer that question, but the answer to that is no. You don't need a home lab. But I answered this question in like a video. Like the way that I put it is if you have a reason for a home lab, then get a home lab. Or if you want to tinker, those are like the two reasons to have a home lab. Like either you have a real reason, like I wanted a Plex server. That's what started the process probably, right? Then it spiraled out of control, and I now Dockerize everything. But either you're like that where you have a reason, like you want to run Nextcloud, or you want to run Image or something like that, or you just won the lottery and you want to create yourself a home lab server just to tinker with. And those are really the only two things. No one who doesn't have a reason for it or the need to tinker really needs a home lab. But if you're interested in stuff like that, I think that it has been astonishing fun. Like it's been so like it really has been like I first started using Linux full time in 2017, and I distro hopped like every 2 or 3 days. Like it was crazy. I wanted to experience all of it everywhere. I wanted to learn as much as possible. This has been that same experience, but on a much more expensive scale.
well, and I mean, you don't have to spend a lot of money for a home lab because you can just run it off an old laptop. The problem is anyone who's going to be realistic and honest with you, that laptop is not going to last you long because you're going to want like home. I don't know anyone who starts a home lab or starts like messing around with networking stuff and does like literally just one thing and stops like that. That's it forever. Like you're gonna find one other service where you're like, that's really cool. Like you're just gonna find it. And an old laptop might work for one or two things, but it's probably not going to be able to run a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
but if you know what, here's the thing. If you, I think Matt said it well in the sense that if you're a tinkerer or you just want to learn stuff, this is a kind of a fun experiment, mental exercise, if you will. And the fact is, start with something simple like a virtual machine. Just get that up and running. And then you can, because I think it's invaluable information. But here's the one tip that I do have: documentation. Try to write stuff down, document what you're doing as far as your setup, how to do certain things. I did a whole thing with like, okay, so if I'm using a Debian server, how do I get Portainer installed? How do I do that? And just, having that information is maybe step one for somebody that wants to get started. I don't know that I know anything about, in fact, am very confident that I don't know anything about Proxmox at all. Okay. But there are baby steps here in order to get to that level. And maybe the first thing is just start with, like you said, Tyler, an old laptop and try to get like a virtual machine running, or you just get like a Docker, like, I'm going to say Portainer again, but basically, just get Portainer and then run something off of Portainer and then see where you are, but documentation, just documentation, helps you retain the information that if you're interested in doing this. Then I think writing stuff down is a big step in the right direction.
I normally don't do that, but like what I did was I wrote down the 2 or 3 things, like goals that I wanted to do. And then as I was doing things, I was writing it down on paper, what I was doing as I went along. So like I could reference how I got to where I was. But I found out, and another nice feature of Proxmox is when you're using it, like for the actual machine, there is literally a document, a markdown document that you can edit to do the exact same thing, like where you would write down on paper. Like you can write out what you're doing in Proxmox, of what your goals are, like what, like as you get services implemented, what's actually running, what's what. Like it's Proxmox helps a lot in the documentation aspect, but I couldn't agree with you more, like at all, Drew. Like write down what you're doing, like it comes in handy later, because you'd think with like how new stuff is, you'd remember what you're
Oh
doing.
my gosh.
No, no.
It's information overload. I mean, it truly
Yes.
is. There's so much of it, and there's no way you can actually retain rather all of that information. It's nonsense if you think that you can remember everything.
I'm going to be one of those people who wish that they'd done what you told me to do. I'm going to, at one point, and because of that stupid USB pass-through thing that I was talking about, eventually I'm probably going to have to basically start over again, right? Because I'm going to need to, because I doubt very much that the enclosure that I have right now formatted those drives in such a way that they're going to actually be usable in another enclosure, because they're going to do something stupid like putting something weird at the beginning of the sector or at the end of the sector, whatever the petition, so I have a feeling that I'm going to have a situation where I'm going to have to start over again, and I'm going to seriously regret not doing what Drew told me to do and writing down exactly how I got to where I am now. Because right now, if somebody told me, Matt, you have to install Portainer again, I'd be like, I don't know how. I use it every day. I have no clue how to install it. I have to go back and find the tutorial that I, use to install it and follow that tutorial again. Same thing if someone told me that I had to, I don't know, install NFS. Like I spent a good probably 3 hours setting NFS up on that one VM, because I set up NFS. And then I set up AutoFS on all of the VMs and on my main machine, so it basically auto mounts everything, and it will suspend the mount when it's not in use, which is really cool, right? But if someone told me, Matt, you have to do all this over again, I'd be like, well, I guess I go back to Learn Linux TV and figure out how to do it again, because I wrote nothing down. Like
I hate to tell you this, Matt, but I also stress to you how neat and important the notes was.
I know.
On Proxmox.
You told me. I didn't listen, and I doubt that when I go through and do it again, that I'll listen again, because I have dreams of being as organized. Like, I have severe Drew envy. Like, I don't know if you guys have seen Drew's GitLab, but this man, the SOB, has all this stuff on GitLab that, like. Okay, so I expressed an interest in Genie, and 2 hours later, this guy sends me, I don't know, 500 or 600 words, along with pictures and annotated pictures of how to set up Genies to be exactly like his. And it's like, I need to get my shit together. My life is not together anymore, okay? Like, I'm obviously doing something wrong with my life. If he could just do this. It probably took him like 10 minutes or whatever, because he just does these things, and I don't like you anymore, Drew. You're way too organized for me.
It hurts my feelings to know that I am unappreciated. No, I'm just kidding. But you know what? Here's the thing. I did take a couple hours to do that, because I really thought to myself, this is something that not just Matt might want to know, but this is something that a lot of people might want to know, because I did a video on it, and I thought to myself, this is really good information if you are kind of in the boat that you and I are in, where we want to use something like Genie. And to your point though, you use IOTIS. Would you use that for everything Markdown related, or are you looking for something else too?
No, I'm just using it for
just notes.
Notes, yeah. Just because it has the syncing stuff, right? For everything else, I've bought into Obsidian. Like Obsidian allows me to be about as organized as you possibly can be. I hate that I have to put everything in one vault, because I don't want to manage multiple vaults, but I've gotten over it. So I set up Genie. I went through your tutorial, which was awesome. I didn't mean to say that it only took 10 minutes. Like, it was mostly just being funny there. Like, you put all that effort into it. I went through, I installed Genie, I got all the plugins and set all the stuff where you wanted me to do. But what I found, and this is my biggest complaint about Obsidian, is that once you're in, it's really hard to leave. It's like an Apple product. Like, it's really hard to get out of there's a reason why they call them a vault. You're shut in there and the door's locked. You can't get out.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
And I don't know. Unless someone comes rescues me, I'm getting out because it's really good, but it's also, you can tell it has like a greasy slime of proprietariness around it in the way it does stuff. And you can just tell that that's the way they treat stuff. And maybe that's unfair, but it's just the way it is.
Well, you do have a good point there. That's with notes and stuff like that. It is oddly like an Apple ecosystem. Everyone wants to lock you in and keep you there. Like, it's weird too, because you're not even like a customer with these programs. So it's like, why? Like,
well, especially because it uses Markdown. Like, Markdown is the thing that it uses, but it doesn't store things the way that you'd expect it to store things. Now, it doesn't do crazy shit like Joplin does. Like, Joplin stores things in like, you know, when you're downloading something from the browser, you got a .part that's in your
yeah.
Like, that's basically the way Joplin stores
oh,
shit.
they
like,
break it up into
little
parts.
bitty pieces, and it's nuts. It doesn't do that on Obsidian, but it's very much, it organizes things the way that it wants to be organized, and getting that stuff. It's like trying to take VimWiki documentation and stuff and to get it out of VimWiki. It's not, you can do it, but it's not as easy as you'd like to be done. So
home lab adjacent.
yeah.
I kind of wanted, I don't want to necessarily like draw too much away from the topic, but home lab adjacent with Nextcloud, for example, if you have a need to, because like for my particular instance of Nextcloud, I use a external file storage that is on my NAS, so that like my documents, my photos, and my notes are actually on my true NAS server, and those are connected externally to my Nextcloud instance. So they get backed up constantly over those 5 disks. Okay. And because of that, and I have notes running in Nextcloud, I use the Nextcloud desktop so that it synchronizes everything with my local PC. This is going to sound stupid. Okay, so it synchronizes everything with my local PC. So when I do make notes, it's in the notes directory, and it's part of my Nextcloud instance that goes to my TrueNAS server. So everything is kind of like backed up. So I'm not using something like Obsidian. I'm just using Genie for notes. But I showed you, Tyler, I was also interested in maybe even using like NeoVim for notes as well. And that works well also. But I like being in Genie because it's just easy for me. That made absolutely no sense at all. I'm just saying.
No, it made sense. My only question would be if you've got your like this drive hooked up to Nextcloud, and you're using like Nextcloud Desktop to sync like an entire like directory, like on your machine to it, why not just mount the NFS share as a drive on the system?
That's a good question. I don't know how to get to it outside of my network.
Oh, good. Yeah, that's a good point. Good point.
So like I have
I actually
have a subdomain files dot, let's just say just a guy linux.com. Okay. And that is my Nextcloud instance so that I can get to it outside of the network.
One of you people don't go DDoS that URL. Okay. That'd be mean.
Yeah, I purposely avoided saying what the actual URL was.
Yeah. Every time I do a video on something like this, I always have to blur the thing because I'm terrified of even like an IP address that they really couldn't do anything about. Like everybody knows the 192.168. You know, like everyone has the same ones, but I still don't want mine out there. Like, I know what I'm doing with it. Like, you can't do anything with them, but I don't want it. It just, whatever. So for me on the Nextcloud thing, like I have the Nextcloud set up just like you, except for I run it through a Docker container using Portainer, and that is, I run that through Nginx to a URL behind Cloudflare, but it stores everything on a drive which it is connected to via NFS. So the NFS is mounted in one VM, or it is created as a server on one VM, mounted in the Docker VM as an NFS share through AutoFS, sure enough, and then the Nextcloud server just connects it to that mounted drive. It just sees it as a mounted drive. I said a lot of words there, but to go back to your documentation thing, I couldn't reenact that if I needed to. I don't know. You're right. I needed to do the documentation thing. Maybe I just go through and reset it up and do the thing you guys told me to do. So, anyway.
Just keep a note on like the Proxmox as you're going. And the other thing I will say about that, what also helps is because you'll start a VM with one intention. Like let's say you name it Jellyfin, just as an example, and then you install Nextcloud on it too. If you don't write that down somewhere and it's been a while since you've checked in and you're looking for your Nextcloud, like if you've got like 5 VMs, which one is it? Like you've just got to hunt.
Well,
it makes it way more
I just
annoying.
shove all of it in the Docker one. Like everything's in Docker. I just have one that runs all the Docker containers. One thing that I would do differently if I were to set up everything again is that I would give that VM more storage initially. I gave it 150 gigabytes thinking that, that's going to be perfectly fine. There's no way I'm going to need more than 150 gigabytes. I had plenty to give it, but I just figured, I have a terabyte. I don't need to give it the whole thing. That was a mistake. Give it I would give it everything that it asked for. Like, I'd give it as much storage as possible. Now, it's not that big of a deal because all it's stored on there are the Docker containers themselves. All the volumes, or at least most of the volumes, I've been able to put on other drives, which are also mounted in that VM. So it's not that big of a deal. So I'm not going to run out. But if I were to want everything inside of that VM or in those Docker containers to also reside on that same VM, I'd be in trouble because I 150 gigabytes was not enough. So, all right. So we've overgone just a little bit, just chattering. So we're going to have to jump out of this topic and move into Nuggies of the Week real quick so we can get out of here before actual midnight. So Nuggies of the Week, basically they're picks of the week, tips of the week, apps of the week, whatever you want to call them. But because I have horrible friends and they like to torture me, they've forced me into using a word that I don't like to use, and that's Nuggies. I hate the word with a passion. With passion. I went all Tennessee there for a second.
With passion.
It's so bad. I went Tennessee. And anyways, they're Nuggies of the week. What do you want from me, Tyler? What do you got for us this week?
Because I'm literally addicted right now, and I couldn't think of anything else, and I wanted to talk about it again. Daisy. Okay. If you don't have the game and you want to play it with me, don't worry, I will freaking buy it for you, okay? I love the game. I will definitely play it with you. However, my one stipulation is if I buy you the game, you must play for at least an hour. Can't really get anything done in Daisy in less than an hour. So, there you go.
There has to be some small print there that says limit only available in certain countries. And
don't worry, that text isn't down here. You don't see it. It's all good.
And only available to like 2 people, because I'm only going to be able to buy 2 copies of this game, not to the 100 of people who are now in line.
We, if too many people hit me up, we may have to wait for a sale, but we'll find out.
All right. Yes, you've definitely used that before as a pick. You're obsessed, man. I'm not the one that needed the intervention, Drew. It was him.
You ain't lying.
Yeah. All right, Drew, your Nuggie of the week, please.
Proxmox, goodbye, everybody. No, I'm just kidding. No, I thought about this, and I mentioned it earlier. Image, since we are talking about containers and things like image, it's unbelievably good. And Matt alluded that it is as heavily as it is developed, it's still pretty stable as well. I mean, I've only had one problem in the last 6 or 8 months that I've been using it, but if you're looking to replace Google Photos, this is a really good alternative. And Image is outstanding software.
Yeah, it is so good. And the UI is fantastic, but my favorite part of it is that on iOS, and I don't know if it happens on Android, I don't really remember, but on iOS, a lot of times with these image backup things like Google Drive or pCloud or even Nextcloud, you have to have the app open in order for stuff to be uploading, because otherwise it just takes it completely out of memory and shuts the app down. Image has some kind of magic where it runs a service like once a day or whatever, where we'll troll your photos and upload stuff even if the app's not running. It doesn't matter if you haven't opened the app in like weeks. It will still back up your photos automatically on iOS. I don't know how it does it, how it's gotten around Apple's battery stuff that they don't want, whatever. I don't know how they've done it, but it is awesome. Even Google Photos doesn't do that, by the way. Like Google Photos on iOS requires you, if you want to upload stuff, to have the application open and the screen on. Like, you can't even turn the screen off. You have to have it on. That means if you're uploading like 2,000 photos, you have to sit there like a douchebag with your screen on, running your battery down while you wait for those things to upload. Image, not like that. It's awesome.
I don't know that I'm using Android, but it seems like as soon as I take the picture, it automatically like synchronizes it with my Image instance. Not to mention, I am using Proton Mail now as a mail provider, and they have Proton Drive, and it also backs it up to my Proton Drive at the same time. So I actually have two locations of the same photo. But
I had never even seen the UI for this thing. If anyone hasn't seen, it's image.app. Holy crap, y'all. Like, that looks very much like Google Photos. Like, that looks very good. Incredibly good.
Very good. And the mobile apps are just as good. A lot of times when you have these open source applications and they do happen to have a mobile application, you can tell it's basically just a web wrapper. Not the case. Like, these are actual designed applications. Like, you can tell this was written in probably Swift or whatever it is for iOS. It works fantastically well. It's so very, very good.
It's got AI as well. So it's like, okay, I can search for, I don't know, dogs. And then all of a sudden, all your photos that have a dog in the are, there's a subset of it immediately on your display. Amazing.
It's very, very good. I've actually also contributed to the project. I corrected a typo. I'm now a developer of Image.
I thought you were big money bags and were like throwing some cash.
No. In the Portainer documentation, they had a capital letter where it wasn't supposed to be, so I fixed it. I fixed it. I was like, yes, I'm a part of the project now. That's horrible. Anyways, mine, I probably should have done something relating to home server, but I didn't. So if you've watched me for any amount of time, you know that I'm a big proponent of scratch pads. They're freaking awesome. They're the number one thing that I miss from a window manager. And getting a scratch pad to work on GNOME has not been easy. Like I really want to just use the drop-down functionality of Tilix, which is my preferred terminal emulator, but it doesn't work well on Wayland. I tried to use the Guac or whatever the hell it's pronounced as. That doesn't work well on Wayland. I could you Walkway, the one from KDE, whatever. They really need some better fucking names. But I don't want to download all those dependencies. That does work well on Wayland, but there goes Drew. Completely gone. He's back.
Annoying.
I think you're gonna have to set up that server, Drew. Anyways,
trust me. So
what I said a lot on was someone messaged me something called DD term. I may have actually used this last week. To be honest with you, I may be doing the same thing twice in a row. I don't know. Anyways, DD term. It's a GNOME application. It basically is just a drop-down terminal. If I did happen to actually use that 2 weeks in a row, just ignore me. I'll come up with something better next.
I don't think you did.
Anyways, DD term it's a GNOME extension. It's just a drop-down terminal. It's not as customizable as I would like, but it is customizable. It's just not as customizable as I would like it to be. But what could possibly be that? So, anyways, yeah, it works well as a small replacement for the scratch pads, which I desperately miss. I'm pretty sure, guys, I'm pretty sure that by the time we talk next Tuesday, this guy will no longer be on GNOME. Like, I am fed up with GNOME. Like, it's good. Like, it's a good desktop environment. It's fantastically stable, but I am so fucking bored with GNOME. Like, I want my window managers back. I lived in Hyperland for like 30 minutes the other day, and like, oh, it was so good, but it was also so still fucking muggy. Like, it's still so buggy. Like, why can't we have a Wayland compositor that is stable, that works like Hyperland? If Hyperland was stable, guys, like, I shit you not, it is the perfect window manager. Like, it had, like, if you want it to be like i3, you can have it to be like i3. If you want it to be create workspaces like BSPWM, you can do that. If you want to have, you can create it so you can do all these cool things with basically series of key bindings. So it's basically a souped up version of key cords. You can do that. It's awesome. But it's also buggy. So I'm gonna start.
I don't know. Hyperland has fixed a lot of bugs, but I will say the continuous development and changes, oh my god. It makes it having a reliable Hyperland system for 2 months almost impossible. Like, there's going to be some part of the config that is now broken, which is literally the reason why I left Qtile. Like, I left Qtile for that exact reason. I'm going to give
LabWC a shot, I think, just because it's a Wayland and it looks like OpenBox and it's using an XML configuration. I'm curious as to how that looks on a Wayland machine.
Yeah, let me know, because I do have it installed. I just have never actually tried it. All right,
okay.
So,
all right.
The editor has appeared back in the chat and has told us we've gone way too long, and he doesn't want to edit this anymore. So, sorry, Dave. We kind of gotten on, a soapbox, and we went on a few tangents. It was good. Anyway, so that's it for the Linux cast, guys. We have been going for a good long while. It was a good podcast. If you want to get in contact with us, you can do so. Email at thelinuxcast.org. That's probably the best way to get in contact with us. That's the email address. If you want to get in contact with Drew or Tyler, you can just email me, and I will forward the email along to them as well if you want to do the whole email thing. You can also head on over to thelinuxcast.org, which is the website. There you'll find previous episodes all the way back to Season 1, as well as various blog posts that I've posted over the course of the last couple of years. All that stuff is really awesome, so you should definitely check it out. If you want to find all of our other contact information, you can do so at thelinuxcast.org. Specifically for Tyler, he has a YouTube channel. He's at youtube.com/ZanioG. He does make occasional YouTube videos when he remembers the password sometimes. Still, the best story ever is him becoming an OpenBSD guy, getting featured on one of the largest YouTube channels that does open source stuff, and then immediately stopping the OpenBSD stuff. It's the best story I have. Anyways, it's great. Drew is also on YouTube. He makes more frequent content than Tyler does. So he's at youtube.com/JustAGuyLinux. Primarily, if you have anything good to say about Debian and you want to learn about Debian, go watch his videos. Specifically, if you, like, that guy knows how to do Btrfs like a wizard on Debian. Like, seriously, it's awesome. Like, go check it out. Anyway.
Debian today is the arch of yesterday.
that's putting Debian down just a little bit.
I know. I'm just messing.
Debian has always been way better than Arch. There you go. That just threw.
Good night, everybody.
The bomb into the chickens. Anyways, that's it for this one. We'll see you next week if you want to watch us live Tuesday. Every Tuesday at 8:00 p.m. Eastern Time. Thanks to everybody who does support me on Patreon, patreon.com/LinuxCast. You'll find all of the awesome people somewhere along the line floating above our faces or along our side or whatever. That'll happen in post because Matt doesn't have the scene ready and prepared. So, anyways, we'll see you next time.
Goodbye.
Boy.